Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to talk to you about this guy. He's called Abraham Punchable, and as you may have guessed by his name, he is French. So I would invite you now to take a look at this photo of him. He looks like a regular guy, right? Probably works in an office. Well, that could not be further from the truth. I'll give you a clue. It's because of him that I wrote this speech, because I found out about what he does around 6 months ago, and it involves living inside things or on things. So today I'm going to talk to you about weird art. Perhaps I shouldn't call it weird. After all, art is something that is hard to define, and who am I to call it weird? But when it comes to Punchable's art, I think my opinion is justified. Anyway, first of all, before I show you some of his art, let's take some time to consider what art is. I decided to look up art in the Oxford Dictionary, and it has 3 definitions. Firstly, it is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination. Art is typically in a visual form, such as painting or sculpture, and it produces works that are appreciated for their beauty or emotional power. The second definition says that art is a work produced by human creative skill and imagination. Yes, that is the same as the first definition. Well done, Oxford Dictionary. The third definition is a creative activity resulting in the production of paintings, drawing or sculpture. Yet again, 3 definitions that are all the same. So, with these definitions in mind, you'll probably start thinking of Picasso or Michelangelo or other such famous artists like the example here of Monet's water lilies. But what about the Tate Modern? It's full of a very different sort of art, more like this. Yes, those are real crows that have been stuck to a wall. Or what about this? No, I didn't just paste a blue square onto the PowerPoint. This is a piece of work by Yves Klein, and it was made in 1959, and the name of it is IKB 79. A typical comment that you might overhear people saying in the Tate Modern when they look at IKB 79 is, I could do that, or it's just a kid who painted a piece of paper blue. But the thing I really love about this type of art is not the art itself, but the words that go with it. Because it's the words and the belief that the artist has in what they've created that makes it art. And let's face it, sometimes it's just plain hilarious. So let me indulge Yves Klein with his blue sheet of paper by reading you the gallery label that you can find with this piece of art. In 1947, Yves Klein began making monochrome paintings, which he associated with the freedom from ideas of representation or personal expression. A decade later, he developed his trademark patented colour, International Klein Blue, the colour you see right here. He believed that this colour had a quality close to pure space, and he associated it with immaterial values beyond what can be seen or touched. He has described it as a blue in itself, disengaged from all functional justification. Klein made around 200 monochrome paintings, all using the same colour blue. He didn't give any of these paintings a title, but after his death, his widow was very imaginative and numbered them all from 1 to 200. Well, I'll give it to him. It's a nice shade of blue, right? Anyway, now let's look at some even weirder art. Perhaps you expected me to talk about this by Damien Hirst when you saw the title of my speech. But instead, let's keep on the animal theme whilst we look at the lesser known Mr. Punchable. Here is one of the first pieces of art that got him famous. This may look like an ordinary taxidermy bear, but that's not quite the case. For 13 days and 13 nights, beginning on the 1st of April 2014, Mr. Punchable lived inside the hollowed out carcass of this bear. It was in the centre room of the Hunting and Nature Museum in Paris. And just like a bear has to hibernate in the winter, Mr. Punchable lived inside the bear. He remained in a very small enclosure. He did not leave the bear for 13 days or 13 nights, and he kept everything he needed with him to survive inside the bear. As you can see here, he had food, water, activities, and even a place to relieve himself, all contained in this makeshift unit. By living inside the bear, Punchable aimed to understand his own physical limits and experience animal nature. It's a symbolic image of the inside out of a bear during hibernation. If you visited the museum whilst he was living in a bear, you could interact with him. There was even a live feed for 24 hours a day so that the public could keep an eye on the guy living in a bear. And apparently the theme of being enclosed really appealed to Mr. Punchable, because his next piece of art was even more bizarre. I am travelling in this rock without moving like an astronaut, he said. The artist lived in this rock. He even had to store his own excrement around him, and he made headlines worldwide when they closed the rock around him in the Palais de Tokyo Art Museum in Paris. As we can see, the 44-year-old artist carved out a hole inside the rock, which is in his own image. It was just big enough for him to sit up in, and it had a special compartment inside to hold water, soup, and dried meat. According to the artist, what worried him most was claustrophobia and lack of sleep, as well as the darkness that he would live in. He had no watch, and he simply had an emergency phone line, so he couldn't even tell when it was night or day. He could move his hands and feet a few inches, so he did not feel oppressed by the rock. He said he felt a connection with the rock. He says, "We are already locked into our bodies," and he became the beating heart of this boulder. Apparently, living inside the rock was very emotionally challenging, and it was like a roller coaster. He said he felt like he was tripping on drugs, and he kept a diary so that everybody can experience what he went through living in a rock. And here's a picture of the rock close up, just to get you the proper image of what it was like. The third and final art performance that I will mention by Mr. Punchable is the following. Can you guess what it is? Well, maybe you already heard about this one, but in case you didn't, Mr. Punchable became a chicken. Yes, he sat on 10 eggs until they hatched. This time, Abraham Punchable was sealed inside a glass vivarium. He sat on a small chair, slightly above the eggs to incubate them. The problem is that human body temperature is not the correct temperature for hatching eggs, so he had to find a way round this. This is why he's wearing the special blanket, and he ate a lot of ginger, because apparently it raises your body temperature. He told the people who interviewed him that sitting on eggs to hatch them was interesting for the artist because it raises questions of metamorphosis and gender. Mr. Punchable sat on the eggs almost round the clock. He only had a half-hour break every 24 hours. You will be pleased to know that the chicks hatched, as you can see here, and Mr. Punchable said that his chicks will never end up on a dinner plate. He plans to give them to his father's farm in the west of France so that they can live a happy life, although they're probably going to miss their mother chicken or father chicken. As you may well imagine, this stunt was heavily criticised by animal rights groups, but let's face it, it was kind of hilarious, and it's definitely a different take on art. So now that we've seen 3 of Punchable's most famous pieces of art, I should mention that he's also lived on top of a pole, he's also lived in a bottle on a river, and lived underground. So he definitely likes living in things. But maybe we should look at why he actually does all of this, because there has to be a reason, right? Well, I tried my best to find out, and it's a bit hard to explain. Mr. Punchable grew up in a detached community in the countryside. Perhaps you're not surprised to hear this. And apparently it was the perfect environment in which to start practicing sophrology. I tried my best to find out what it is, but I'm not really sure. Apparently it's the study of the consciousness in harmony, whatever that means. It's a healthcare philosophy made of a very practical physical and mental set of exercises that is supposed to prepare your mind and prepare your body to be focused. Using a metaphor to shape his personal certainties and practice results, Mr. Abraham Punchable became an artist. He says that his work reflects his goal in life to be attentive to the universe in which he lives. His next big dream for his next project is to walk on the clouds. He has been working on this project for 5 years, and unsurprisingly, he's yet to find out how to do it. So finally, I'd like to ask you, what do you think? Are his performances something we can really call art? I think they are, because art is something that changes all the time. It's often a reflection of the changes we go through in society. And personally, I love modern art, even if it's because I find it hilarious. And I'm definitely intrigued to see what Mr. Punchable will do next. Thank you.